And there we
Also,
go.
the current title is Unpopular Opinion Just.
Huh.
Oh, I have some unpopular opinions.
I don't know why I did that.
Oh, my intro sound didn't play.
Oh
It
my
did
god,
not.
and a bill. Oh god,
Well.
and a bill. Okay. Well, this
You
is going to
you
be
can put
fun.
Bill up by the window.
God damn it. Oh yeah, his little devil man in the background. That's going to be great.
No, Bill would just have to sit on the floor.
Put him in the window.
No, don't put him in the window.
Just remind the kids to leave from behind you.
You remove people. Ah.
No, I was thinking the side window, but you know, that works too.
He is now blocking the window.
Is your phone dead?
I'd put him outside looking through the window.
What's their name on Twitch?
You've got a lot of...
Librarian Raccoon.
If you go into the event channel, where I've posted about this week's chat, Twitch is blue because you can click it to go straight to my link, because I'm totally techie now. She says,
Oh, they had to specify it's now.
oh, no, it is definitely now. I was not techie before. I have learned a lot these last few days.
Oh, wait a minute. Ayo.
Ayo.
Whose voice do I hear?
Mine?
I could have swore I heard Bill's for a second.
Yeah, Bill's here. He's speaking.
Oh, no.
Oh, hey.
No, Bill's not here.
Just in the background.
That's why we've got the devil skeleton in the corner.
Excuse me, that's a pirate thing?
It's a skeleton.
You just have my
Fire.
profile pic over in the corner on the chair.
And a pirate.
I mean, you got the guest chair. Bill's hanging on the windowsill, so...
I know.
Correct.
I just started following you.
Thank you. Oh, that puts us at 20.
Yeah.
We are 5
Yes,
away
Bill.
from our first goal.
Welcome.
Huh?
By the way, Bill, did I hear that there is baby now?
There is indeed, yes.
Oh,
Congrats.
congratulations.
Yeah,
I don't know why I sounded like the cat from Puss in Boots, but we'll go with that.
That's been fun.
Yeah, I bet. I love newborns.
Ari, did you
From-
post a question? Where?
See, this is what we should have
From,
done. I did Bill, which was like not be involved for the first few years until they got past the really irritating stages and then come in.
That's not how that works.
He's not even been the problem, it's been Maddie. He's
Oh.
not excited about
Yeah,
having
let's
another
say
kid in the
Let's-
house.
let-
That's solid.
I think it is important to remember we're on stream.
I'm trying. Right, I will have this posted in 2 seconds.
There's no video, so I'll probably
Oh.
show him off a little bit later.
Fudge you.
I hopped in here when we were in the hospital, but like nobody was on because it was middle of the night.
No, that's not.
Should have messaged me.
Stream.
There
That's
are,
true, Bill.
it's 250.
I didn't bother messaging anybody. I just whoever was around is who I showed.
You did 2 separate things then.
Fair enough. Well, congrats on the new baby.
Absolutely,
There we
it's a
go.
pain in the ass.
I bet he's
That-
lovely, though.
That's a child for you.
Yeah,
Okay. Let's get moving and grooving.
about how tiny kids can be when they're first born.
Okay. So, this week we are talking about unpopular opinions. Fun as that will be. Especially with the people we have tonight. Thank you, Bill. Thank you.
This is the first time I've been in like an actual VC in like a week because of the kids. So I saw it, and I was like, screw it. Go ruin their day a
And the
little
last
bit.
time you were in a book club was the autism but make it. What did we say? Autism but make it.
I have no idea.
I can't remember what it was now, but it was funny. Spirited
Love to be
but
of some
make it
assistance here, but-
autistic. That was the chat
Oh, yeah.
where we tried to work out how to
David?
build. No, it was Bill as well.
Oh, okay.
Because it was between you, Bill, and Sai. We had the autism cubed.
Autism cubed.
Not right now, Leela.
Autism for days.
Autism cubed is a
Did
crazy
you just say
one.
they had the autism queued?
No, cubed.
We got the autism on deck, boys. Queued up and ready to fuck.
Leela, Jessica.
Okay, I'm gonna start by asking: are there any books that are widely loved but just did not work for you? Let's see how.
Most of them.
Let me hold.
I will
Let me say one.
reaffirm the fact
I'm
that
taking it away. Hello.
Hi,
Lord.
Layla.
Hi, Lila.
Now, go take your stuff to your room and go hang out. There's people. They're cooking.
Right, sorry.
They're cooking in the kitchen, so come on. Yeah.
So which books
3.
have been like bestsellers, mass hits, everyone recommends them, and you've just been like, nope, not for me.
I am a huge fantasy fan, and I have not read Game of Thrones. I've not read Lord of the Rings.
Oh my god.
Are you serious?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've tried. I genuinely have sat down and tried, and it's just not. I don't know whether it's. I don't know whether it's just the style that I'm not. It doesn't agree with me. I don't know. I think with. I know people have said. Just like I've tried watching the Lord of the Rings films as well, like incredibly bored, and I just sit there and I'm like, I don't understand the systems within which we're working, and I'm not going to go into that whole conversation because that was another thing we did. But yeah, I just haven't engaged with them in like I guess properly.
See, I can agree with you on the Game of Thrones one. Like,
Game of
because
Thrones his entire solution to a problem is sex or killing someone off. And
yeah, I
think that's
just
tactful writing in the slightest.
It's
I
too
mean-
real world for me.
I can't read the actual Lord of the Rings book, but I can read the Silmarillion.
I can't.
I
fucking
can't.
read them. I've tried.
Yeah,
I can't focus enough on Lord of the Rings to do it. But I love the movies.
First person to say that I highly recommend Lord of the Rings to any fantasy fan out there because I think it is
No, I
such an
don't.
important
No.
book. However, I will also be the first to say that I can tell why it's not for everyone because it is hard to read.
Leela,
So
can you please
I
sort of
have
in that
a-
same
talk
vein,
here, then?
Go on, Bill.
I would definitely recommend that people read The Hobbit or
What do you
the
want?
Stories of
I'll
Tom
give you
Bombadil.
4 pieces of
Oh,
candy.
definitely.
Fuck the Silmarillion
If you let
and
me
fuck
do
the
this.
Lord of the Rings
And-
books.
Okay. By the time I'm done here,
I mean,
they'll be done
maybe
cooking
don't.
in the
Let
kitchen.
his
Got it?
I would not
don't let his
physically
autism
assault
peak.
Go.
a
No,
book.
hold on. Listen, let me
Go to your
justify my. Let me justify. There is no question at all that Tolkien was autistic as hell. To the
I
point
don't disagree
where
with you on that.
I know very little about the characters themselves, but the settings and like the stuff that does not matter, like went into what was it, like an 8 or 9 page just rant about the intricacies of how hobbits make food. And it's like, why do I care? Like, I don't. This is not part of the story, like, at all. There's no reason to put that much detail into something like this and then skip over everything else about the hobbits. It doesn't make any sense.
Fair enough.
Honestly, like, yeah, that might actually be it. I like detail that makes sense to the world. If it's something that's going to actually build upon interactions between individuals, fair enough. Or it's like going to inform like how a government works or a relationship between certain
Yes.
races or like something like that, which
Yes.
obviously can happen on a huge scale and can also just be shown in the way like one character treats another. Like that makes sense. But
Yes.
yeah,
She does
if
not
you're-
do well enough.
If it's filler for the sake of filler, I don't want it.
See, that's the thing though, is I don't believe, at least Tolkien believed, that it was filler. Tolkien wrote in such a manner that it almost feels intentional. This is something that he felt you needed to know about. But then in the grand scheme of things, like, it doesn't fit in. He's like, it's what I thought about writing that day. It's like, all right, well, think about writing something else.
Wasn't
Well, but-
wasn't the Lord of the Rings though, essentially? Am I thinking of the Hobbit, where it's just a story he told his son? That,
No,
Yeah,
that's
it started out
It
as a
was technically
bedtime
all of
story.
them. They were all
Yeah.
based on stories he made up. to
So
tell
I
his
guess
son.
if you're, I guess if we don't know that interaction, and so you can sit there and go, well, if the kid was like, oh, it's like what were they eating, and like that just kind of stuck with him, like that could be part of it.
Well, yeah, and to be fair, as a parent and anyone who's tried to drag out a story to make your kids go to sleep, I'll 100% describe an entire table setting just to be like, oh look,
no,
and we're done
100%.
now, you're asleep, thank God.
If this is
See,
just a
I
story
do
you're
that a
telling
lot
your
with
kids
her.
to move on, that's fine. Like, that's fully justified. Like, I'll do the same bullshit to Maddie a lot. Like, I'll just start rambling about just random bullshit until she falls asleep. It's a disconnect between his own stories, where he made, what was it, 3 or 4 completely different, like, full-on languages for this
yeah.
book. You could go right now and learn
Yep.
an entire fucking. You can learn dark speech. You can learn Elvish, and you can learn Orvish. You can learn all 3 of those languages, like full on communication, like native languages. Just because he decided that's something he wanted to do.
Not me being
Like,
a total
they
geek
they
who
don't. They're
actually sat
barely
and
used in any of
learned
the stories.
Elvish when I was younger.
Like there's almost no connect between him creating 3 individual languages and him actually using most of those languages in his stories. Like there's bits and pieces here and there, but there's also translations into English already in the book. Like bro just did shit for the sake of doing shit. And it doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense to me. That's like 80% of his books. This is coming from someone who owns all of the special full editions of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and have watched them multiple times completely through. It's just the books, there's no filter on the books. There's no condensing the shit that doesn't make any sense down.
I'm gonna say this was
It's just
something I was gonna bring up
incredibly odd.
a little bit later, and it is a very unpopular opinion of mine. That is, sometimes I think the film can be better than the book.
I mean, yeah, no, I get that and I agree, but like,
It's not
Bill, as
always
you were
the case,
saying,
but yeah, I think there are definitely times where you can sit there and go, the book just either was too long, or like you say, there were too many points where it just went on and on about a thing that in the real grand scheme of things you were like, actually you didn't need 2.5 chapters to explain that to us. And yeah, there are
It
times
feels
where I
like-
just
like-
think the acted version of something just comes across and sits with you so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's also the idea that some ideas are too abstract and actually kind of need you to put a visual in place to understand what they mean, especially where you're using non-existent language. So if you're coming up with abstract concepts, you're coming up with especially so like you see it in sci-fi a lot, right? Where they'll come up with names for things and try to describe how they would work, but they might not have any sort of basis in existing science. So to try and understand that, you kind of just like going along with it. Whereas if you take that and put it in a visual format, that information is portrayed so much more obviously, that you don't kind of have to figure out exactly what they're describing. It's just there for you to see, and then you just take it as it is. And that's where obviously the visualization of information is really important, because if you do have to try and make it up, you've kind of got to try and make it work in your own head. Whereas if someone puts it in front of you in a visual format, which goes, "This is this thing," take it as it is. You go, "Okay, then," and you don't question it.
Well, and see, like, I get all of what you guys are saying, but it's also, I started reading the Unfinished Tales, like, just a random collection, and that makes it even, like, more confusing, because
Even
they
get me
decided to
started
do...
on the Unfinished Tales.
No. So I will say this. There are things in the Unfinished Tale that if they had put those into actual printed books, would have made more sense. Like, there's
Yeah.
experts... There's pieces that they could have switched out in Lord of the Rings that would have made so much more sense for everyone, and wouldn't have dragged it
100%.
on. And I kind of wish they had, because there's just... Like, as you guys were saying, like, there's 3 different versions of the book.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish they had just condensed all 3 into one, where it was more able to follow. Like, I can't remember the term, but being able to follow them.
It would have
Like they
flowed
did with
better.
Clue, where they had
Yes, it
like
would have.
6 different of the movie, and then the actual, like in the theatrical releases, there were 6 different versions of it.
Yeah.
And on the VHS release, it had all 6 endings combined together.
Yep.
Tolkien was a very odd guy, and his son was no better.
He's English.
So
You expect it.
I'm gonna jump back way back to something Sai said. You're a big fantasy buff. So my kinda sorta hot take is, at least until book 4 or 5, Game of Thrones isn't a fantasy series. It's a
It's
drama
more based in
series.
historical.
No, it's just a drama series.
Fair enough. Okay, fair enough. I couldn't get through the first, 5 chapters of the first book. I couldn't do it.
I
I
struggled and DNF'd Game of Thrones.
It attracts a very particular kind of person to be able to actually read Tolkien, not Tolkien, Martin's shit.
I DNF'd both the books and the shows.
No, see, because I read up to book 4, and that's where you get the fantasy stuff. That's where it starts, and I completely lost interest, because it took away from what I actually enjoy about the books, which is the intrigue and the fucking murders and the war and the intrigue. And then it's like,
yes,
by the
the
way, we have
intrigue.
ice zombies. Cool.
No,
By
but
the way,
there's
we have
there are
ice
books,
zombies.
but there are books that do it so much better as well.
Yeah.
I suppose technically speaking, I know in the TV show, the dragons come in much earlier. Are they not that early on in the books?
Technically speaking, we have dragon babies at the end of book 1.
So would that not make it a fantasy
Which
by default?
no, but here's the thing: they matter so little to the
Oh,
plot.
okay. It's just oh, by the way, and there's dragons.
Yeah, pretty much. So I honestly forgot that they are that early. That is how inconsequential they are. It's a cool scene. It's just not relevant.
See,
Until much
I don't
happens.
care for the show or the books. I like the lore, though, behind Game of Thrones.
In what sense?
Like,
Fuck my sister, this is Alabama.
no, like the Doom of
Is that
Valyria.
not the history of Game of... No, all it is a single family tree. That's the lore of Game of Thrones.
Banjos playing in the background.
It's less of a tree and more of a like a chain link fence.
It's not even that. It's more like a wreath.
It's fucking Ancestry.com.
Europe like 400 years ago.
I mean, fair.
You're not wrong. You're not
Yeah,
wrong.
no, I would say I think they got the inbreeding of royalty quite on the nose.
Yep.
See, I just like the setting before Game of Thrones, like the Doom of Valeria and like the age of like the lore behind the age of the mythic heroes.
The House of Dragon stuff that they're doing at the moment. Isn't that
Yeah, but
Valeria?
I like that they're doing detail on that because I'm sorry, I couldn't get past the scenes in Game of Thrones. Like I liked Arya's storyline up until they had her kill the Night King because that just made no sense. But I couldn't really follow any of the rest of it because it just wasn't interesting enough to me.
I think they really butchered the storyline for Game of Thrones when it got to actual like translation into physical media. The
Well,
show
see,
wasn't bad. It removed a lot of key details, so a lot of things they just kind of did for no fucking reason. But the
One
book
of
is like,
the
oh yeah, this is exactly why they did this,
yeah,
and the show
the
doesn't give you that background.
biggest issue with the show for me is uh, Martin is really good at making characters you absolutely hate.
Oh,
They are
100%. Yeah.
horrible fucking characters, and like I don't want to read another page about this character, but I want to get to the good part. The series got away with that. No, did away with that.
Yeah.
So even Sansa seems, I don't know,
I have to say, from what I
semi
did
decent.
watch, I could not stand Joffrey for even a moment. He had absolutely no redeeming qualities at all.
Yes, that is the exception.
I will say this about Joffrey: the guy who played him nailed it on the nose from the
Oh no,
books. Like
fantastic
he
actor!
nailed it.
I will give him that. But
Yeah.
that character had no redeeming
Oh, yeah.
qualities
No, but his
whatsoever.
personality trait is he's a twat. That's one personality trait.
That's a lot.
That is
Love
the
that.
main
I got
personality trait in the book.
God tier.
No, it's the only personality trait. He doesn't have anything else.
Fair
But
enough.
that, and he's a product of inbreeding.
I mean, that might explain his personality trait. That doesn't do away with it.
Can't justify it.
Hello, father, uncle, brother. How are you doing today?
No, but that's the thing, isn't it? His dad is his uncle.
No, yeah,
Is that
but
not?
I
'Cause
mean,
it's Jamie Lannister, is it not? His father, who's his mother's brother.
Yeah.
And it was all
Wait,
very,
yeah.
very. Oh God, oh, worse, so much worse.
So, but whereas in the books there are like
Wait, no,
one character I'd like to
if they're fucking
technically.
a twin, is that just not masturbation?
No,
Anyway,
no,
carry on.
no.
They're
It
not
has to be a clone
conjoined.
for this to work.
True.
They're not conjoined.
Either way, so as to not
This is what I
continue
mean.
to speak about Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones for the next 2.5 hours.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a book a book series which I think is highly overrated, and it's still one of my favorite book series.
That
Period.
was going to be my next question, so go
Yes.
ahead.
Which is Dune. It is really
Ooh,
good.
We're really going
It
to piss
it is,
people off
however,
tonight.
not the best fucking sci-fi ever written, which is generally what the consensus seems to be. I am not getting horribly attacked. What is going on?
Say that one more
So I
time.
can't comment on it.
Dune, horribly overrated according to Eli.
It's still good. It's just not
I mean,
that good.
nah. I can't actually disagree with you because I finally read the books and
How
I
many?
almost screamed like halfway through.
How many?
I read 2 of them.
Okay. So there are.
You're doing better than me. I
There
didn't
are.
even know there was more than 2.
I'm gonna make it worse then.
Oh, God.
There are 4. Is it 4 or 5? Give me a second.
I don't think
couldn't
I
get
could read
past,
another one.
like chapter 3 of book 2. That's
I
when I
made it.
stopped reading.
I think. Oh, okay. There are 6 Dune books. There are no more. If you want to read Dune, you read 5 of those.
I can't. I can't.
No, no,
Oh.
no. If you really want to get to like kinda sorta the high point of the story, you read 5 of those and then you stop.
Nope.
There is no high point.
Whereas, his son, I think, yeah, his son and someone else has made another 17 books which don't exist whatsoever.
I love that don't exist whatsoever. Now you make me want to go read them just because you said that, but I'm not going to.
No, but like the first 5 are fine. The first one I really enjoyed. The second one is okay. Third is better. Fourth is good. 5 is great. 6 exists.
The second one is the one I had to put down. I couldn't finish it.
It's slow. Is the problem.
Yeah.
And a lot of things like it's the setup book, pretty much.
Yeah, but even as a setup book, it's too slow.
Yeah.
And on that note, so I finally got through the Wheel of Time like
I was
4 weeks.
I was literally thinking that.
Like
The book of no decision making ever.
so I am gonna contradict Sam here because
Oh,
book
good. That
1
means someone's
through
on my side.
yeah, books 1 through 4 are really good.
Yeah, they are.
And
And then I stopped.
yes, so there's a reason why you stopped.
Isn't it when the writers changed?
No, so Sanderson is the last 2 or
Sanderson did
3.
the last two. If Sanderson wrote them all, I would probably have read them all.
No, you
But-
wouldn't.
No, I disagree
So
on that.
the issue is that, and I'm just gonna double check here.
No, the reason I stopped reading them was that they hadn't been translated into Swedish yet. And at that time I mostly read in Swedish. But then I tried reading the next one and then I just no.
Actually, okay. So the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books are good. Book 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are all setups.
That's fair.
That is the entire those books. A lot of things happen, but nothing of consequence. And then the last 4 books, everything happens, and especially the last book is, I think it's like 70% the last battle,
Yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong there.
which is really fucking cool. But like, yeah.
Okay, so as not to just spend an entire evening pissing off as many people as we can,
Oh no,
Are there-
no. Go on.
are there any underrated books or authors you think should get more attention?
The Shannara Chronicles, 100%.
How is that underrated? It got a TV show.
No. And this is why not.
They only got 1 season, didn't they? Or was it 2 seasons?
Okay, let me. Right.
Oh,
I
yeah, cool.
loved those books. There were 7 of them I read. There was Chronicles of Shannara, and then there was a following season. There was like 7 in total. It was great. And I don't know why they decided to do it, but they took the TV show and essentially used it to ruin it. And for anyone that hadn't read it and was like, "Oh, this could be cool," and tried to watch this, and then was like, "Is this what like the books are like? Because if so, this is horrible." The TV show was so shit, and I feel like it's put the books in a really bad light. And I have a feeling that people who watched the show and hadn't read the books would then immediately avoid watching the books. It is amazing. The books are so good. I cannot recommend them enough, and I really wish I still had my copies of them.
So I'm gonna bring up two, and Ori, if you bring up the TV series, I will fly over to you and beat you over the head with the nearest solid object. If that is a child, I don't care.
Oh my
So,
god.
Where this is going already.
so Sword of Truth is it's the favorite book series I have of all time. It is fucking amazing. It got a TV series which should never have existed.
You mentioned
It
it,
is.
not me.
That's gross.
Are
It
you
is.
talking about the forbidden vault of movies that don't exist?
Like,
The
what,
Oh,
is
wait a
TV
Aragon
minute,
series,
hang
then
on.
yes.
Is
I
Aragon
would
wait a minute,
included
know.
in that? Because the Aragon
There
book
is
was so shit.
there is no
You know
war
what?
in Boston. Say
I've
if you
got an
start that.
unpopular opinion for you on that one. I actually
I
enjoyed
do
the
too.
Aragon film.
Yeah, you're wrong.
Yeah.
What?
I think it was
I'm
a.
gonna-
remember
I think it was a
that
fun
movie.
film. I enjoyed
No.
it. It came out when I was like 12.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so this is my unpopular opinion
I'm actually
about
gonna
that
have to check
movie.
that because I might have just either overaged or underaged myself.
Um, I will.
Ari's
This is
80
my
years old. Just so
unpopular
everyone knows
opinion
that.
on it. I liked the design of Saphira.
I was 14. Apologies. Made myself younger than I was.
I enjoyed the design for Saphira. I did not care for the rest of it.
It was just a really poor adaptation.
Was
It
it
didn't come.
Was it a bad film for what the books were? Yes. Was it a bad film? No.
No.
Okay,
It
but if
wasn't
it's a
a.
bad film because the content doesn't reflect the thing. A film can be if it's not based
Artistic
if it's
license
based.
exists.
Oh, okay.
No, but
No,
wait,
absolute bollocks.
Am I
wait,
having
wait.
fun triggering him? Yes, yes I am.
There's there's a question way down here for adaptations and remakes.
There is adaptations and remakes. Do you think any book adaptations are better than the original book? And what are your thoughts on books being constantly adapted to film and TV? Are there any you think should stay on the page?
I liked Legend of the Seeker more than the book series.
I liked
Bill,
Stardust
I don't
as
like
a
you.
film more than I liked the book.
Wait, there's a book series for that?
There is yes, that is the Sword of Truth book series.
I was
That is
trying
the-
to get it out while Eli was fresh on the topic, but we kept bouncing to other stuff, so I was waiting patiently to say that out loud.
I'm so
I fucking
proud
love
of
Legend of
you.
the Seeker so much.
However, I will say this: like I read the first book when I was 14, maybe, and it wasn't interesting whatsoever.
Buddy, what's up?
Book 2 is where it starts getting interesting.
In that
Unfortunately.
same vein, people are gonna get probably really upset when I say this out loud. I like the Percy Jackson movies better than the books.
The
So,
movies, not
okay.
the TV show.
Not the TV show. No, that's a steaming pile of dog shit we're not gonna talk about.
Okay, so I'm
yeah,
gonna
no, I've got beef with you now.
I'm gonna counter you because I got beef with you also.
I think the
have a lot
TV
of-
show was better than the movies by far.
That's okay.
I just don't think
No, that's
either of
okay.
them were as good as the books.
I like the
Point
books.
out, I actually have an unpopular opinion.
Ooh, love this.
Ish.
Oh,
I
I've got one. I'm saving one until the end.
I haven't read the
Percy Jackson's.
Percy
Peter Jackson.
Yeah,
Peter Jackson.
I was reading on my screen as I was talking. Shouldn't do that. I mean, technically speaking, it should be right up my alley. I just couldn't.
I think I'm a bit old for them now, if I'm honest.
See, I will say this. I like the books more. One, because there's more in it than they ever put into the movies. And I can't say anything about the show because I haven't been able to watch the show yet. So I don't know if that one would be better.
I would say the show is more faithful to the books.
Bless you.
Okay, then I probably would like the show more then.
Because they got
What was the other
again,
one?
it's
That,
like the
I
Aragon
hear
thing.
I
They
hear
got so much
Eli
flack.
sitting there doing yeah.
Yeah, no, I am, but not about Percy Jackson. Not
No,
not my kind of book. So I haven't seen. I haven't read the books. I haven't seen the movie. I haven't seen the series.
Essentially, they're doing the same thing with Aragon that they've done with Percy Jackson. They got so much flack for the
he said,
film
"Oops, that shit doesn't
adaptation
exist. We're doing it something
being-
else."
being so terrible that they're now doing it as a TV show because then they can be more faithful. And they're
See, I wish they would do that with Aragon, but the
No, they are.
copyrights won't allow it.
No, they are doing it. It's in the works.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's
Christopher
been in the
Paolini
works for
is-
like the past 6 years.
No. Christopher
Yeah.
Paolini, he announced it. It is happening.
Oh, are you
Working
serious?
on it. Yeah, he's working on it with them. And that's
Oh,
again,
God, I would-
it was because it happened with Percy Jackson, and they brought in Rick Riordan and made he gave like the go aheads and
Right.
checked the writing and everything to make sure that it was a match for the books. That they're now doing the same because that did so well. They're finally giving us a new inheritance cycle.
Ooh,
Back, Sean Connery.
Sean Connery.
maybe. Maybe.
Didn't maybe mistaking him for someone else. Didn't he
That's
voiced the
another
fucking
dragon
dragon in that movie?
No, that's another
Is it?
dragon movie.
No, that was
Dragonheart.
yeah, it was Dragonheart.
Oh, it's Dragonheart. Okay, hold on.
Say in Aragon, the dragon was a girl. Or it was voiced as a
Oh
girl.
dear
anyway.
lord.
Dragonheart.
Dragonheart.
See-
Can we talk
is-
about the fact that the
is-
ending of the Inheritance series is dog shit?
The ending of what series?
The
My
Inheritance
fucking
cycle,
God,
the Aragon
ending
film.
of the the books. The ending of the book of the last book was one of the worst things I
But they
have
have
seen.
no, but they've
You-
got the new one
oh,
now,
no,
so
no,
it's not
you-
ended. That wasn't the
You
end.
set you set up. You spent
fucking
four
shush.
books. No, shush.
Yes,
You
it's
said
been
not
out
the
of
shush.
question.
You spend
My own stream.
4 books setting up this like
Dear lord.
romance between him and Elf Lady, whose name escapes
Elf
me right
Lady.
now. And
Aria.
yeah, and then
Elf
you
lady.
get to the end, and like the fucking dragons are flirting with each other, and then
I mean, fair.
he turns around and goes like, "Can we?" And she's like, "Nah, I've got a country to run. See you later," and just fucks off. And it's like you spent 4 books like setting up this almost like not even like enemies to lovers type thing, but like almost like duty over romance type thing, and then they just it's I don't know, they've like edged you the entire book and then walked
I think
off.
he's spazzing.
It's really stupid. No, because it's a waste. I wouldn't mind it if that had seemed to be the intention from the beginning.
Oh no,
But
okay.
when you see
I
all of this
Wait,
development,
can I just
hints-
interject for a second?
when you see development
No.
that hints towards this continue,
No,
let
no.
me finish there. You can.
Yeah.
When you have this development that seems to be building up to something, that then is immediately like squashed right at the end, just like they're like, well, this was like every plot point related to this now has been a waste because nothing has accumulated from it. They are in the exact same positions they were right at the beginning of the first book. So this entire sequence was a waste of effort and energy that could have been used to build on other plot points.
I hope you know I'm going to clip that and take out that whole bit with 2 hours later.
I'm. I'll wait till Eli's done.
I'm about to say,
Yes.
let Eli speak.
I
Poor
just,
soul.
I just had this tiny interjection, and then you can go off, Rax. I think it was pre-stream when Sai said that he would have succeeded if he'd managed to trigger one of us,
Yep.
and then we
Well.
just had this,
And then he got triggered
Oh.
himself.
and then he got triggered.
I never said anything about me being triggered.
The player becomes the
and I'm going to do
played.
that.
Well-
I'm going to do that shortly.
Okay. Well,
Go off.
okay. I was waiting for permission.
Oh no.
So, no, I understand what you're saying, Zyber, but what bothers me
But
is the fact that by the second book, she had already told him no. And subsequently, throughout the book, she tells him no, that she cares about him as a friend, but she puts duty above everything, and he doesn't take no as an answer. He just keeps trying.
oh, see, now I'm just gonna see him as a nice guy.
And it bothers
Oh,
me
no.
because, like, it doesn't matter if it's even in a book. Like, she said no, just let it be. And I know that the author had mentioned it at one point that he was originally going to put them together, but by the time he wrote the fourth book, he was older and didn't want to do that
Okay, but
because
then
it was
that's Paul writing on his part. Because again, you've set up an entire sequence of events that then you're going to. That's where you'd sit there and go, okay, I like some type of retcon needs to happen here because I have built these building blocks that I'm then going to absolutely annihilate. Also, if we're going to talk about like he said he wants it and then she said no, and he continued to pursue. 90% of books that have romance in, especially like enemies to lovers and shit like that, follow that exact same thing on the other side of it.
No,
So,
not enemies to lovers.
No, that is not
no.
Enemies to lovers is
no,
both
sorry,
people
that was
absolutely hate
example.
each other.
And no, but
And
there are
then
a lot
something
of books where characters will. In fact, supernatural ones a lot, where it's like, no, I'm a danger to you, and I don't want to be in a relationship. But I really
Okay, we're not
love
talking
you,
about
so I'm
Twilight,
I
gonna
was
are
about to
we?
say,
keep
thank
pursuing
God.
you.
I was like, we're not talking
No,
about Twilight.
because it's
No,
not
but-
just Twilight; it's a lot of them, and that
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
thing of
no,
like
but,
situations change. When
Yes,
you
but
go
there's
through
a
traumatic events together, situations change, feelings can develop. So if he said no, and then if he said he wants it, she said no, and then a period of time has passed, and then an event happens, and you see her starting to change towards him, which is what started to happen, and you then set that up as this is going to be the result of this is of like, oh, he's changing in my viewpoint because he's actually like showing qualities that I appreciate. Like that's different.
I mean,
And it's just the entire setup. I get he might have got older as an author, and so his opinion on things should have changed. But you can't set the building blocks of something and then just tear them down at the last minute. That is poor
Uh,
writing.
is about to leave, and I derail this conversation for just a moment.
Here we go.
is he going to show
Are
us?
we derailing?
He is.
Are we having small baby break?
Baby!
Oh, baby!
So
that is an
cute.
adorable baby.
Okay, there we go. Here.
How
That
do
is
you
a very
make
adorable
such
baby.
cute kids?
Yeah, he is. There you go. I will be back. I'm gonna go take care of this.
Okay.
Um,
I don't need to be distracted by babies.
For those
Oh,
watching
a Hunger
this
Games.
stream,
And
Yes, for
that
those
would be my
who
cue to
are
go because mine is about to
kid pick.
start.
Murdering everything.
No, she's about to start annoying me. And you guys are on stream, so I am going to go.
Yep. Have fun.
All right.
Thank you for joining us,
Take care.
Rex.
Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Hunger Games is probably because I read all the books and I've seen all the movies now. And I think I prefer the movies. The ending might be the only part that the ending wasn't as good in the movies as in the books.
I don't know if I have an opinion on that. I will say my version of that is Maze Runner. I actually preferred the films.
Haven't read the book, saw the first movie, loved the first movie.
Isn't that because Styles is in it?
Yes.
Yes,
The
I am
casting was
biased.
on
Okay,
point.
I like Dylan O'Brien.
Oh no,
Okay.
I'm 100% in agreement with you. I think the
No.
casting was on point.
No,
And I think I think it
you're
made them.
you're missing the point. It's not Dylan O'Brien isn't a good actor. He is, and I enjoy him. Um, him, among other things, is what makes Teen Wolf barely watchable.
100%. Oh, hang on.
Yeah.
Barely watchable is a bit mean. Teen Wolf
No.
is slept on for how good it actually is, and Styles is 90% of that reasoning.
I have seen the series twice. You are wrong.
No! I've watched it multiple times as well. It is a guilty pleasure and a half.
It
I
is.
love
It
Teen Wolf.
is enjoyable trash.
Yeah, it's so bad it's good.
That's pushing it, but yes. I haven't seen all the seasons because there was no more Styles, so you know.
He comes back. You have to
Yeah, he
watch
comes
it. He
back.
comes back.
He is not in that anymore. Okay, okay.
Also, Allison.
Ugh. No.
Give me
Hated
no.
her.
The character,
Hated her. Hated her.
The character isn't great, but she's fucking amazing eye candy. Leave me alone.
No. No. No.
Yes.
No.
So
Either way, this was not what we were talking about. Maze Runner, yes.
No, Maze Runner I do. I think the films were better. I didn't enjoy the books as much as I hoped I was going to, and then nearly didn't watch the films because I hadn't enjoyed the books that much. Watched them and was like, oh, okay, this is actually more what I wanted. And yeah, and a very good part of that could be because Dylan O'Brien acts in such a fantastic way, but I enjoyed the entire cast, to be fair.
mm-hmm.
I just think they did their roles very, very well. And I think for that sort of YA dystopian, we were going through a stage of them with obviously Hunger Games and things like that all coming out. It was very much on theme, and I just think they were really well done. And out of all of the
Divergent,
YA,
Maze Runner,
yeah,
Hunger Games. There's
there was a
few
couple.
more.
Yeah, there was a couple of others, and I think for me, it was the
Divergent.
best of the lot.
I did say Divergent.
Okay.
It was the best of the lot. Divergent, that whole series, I didn't like either the films or the books.
No, it's let's take every YA trope and make them into the most generic ass book series in the world that basically devalues most YA books.
Yeah. No,
Technically,
yeah, you're not wrong on
Percy Jackson fits in there too, but it's not.
It's not dystopian.
Apocalyptic.
Yeah.
But
fantasy,
it's
dystopia,
the coming of age
Oh, no, absolutely.
through
and
adversity.
I think unfortunately there are certain tropes that, because we go through stages with them, they get done to death, and you just get to a point where people are just pumping out something resembling that trope because it's popular at the moment. And we've seen it time and time and again. We saw it with the dystopian novels, we saw it with the fantasy in the follow-up from like Harry Potter. I think there comes a point, and this is somewhat in the adaptations and remakes question. I think there comes a point where certain books probably shouldn't be pushed as much as they are just to match what's going on at the moment or match what's popular at the moment. And I certainly think there are plenty of books that should have stayed books and not been made into films or TV shows. There are some that are done very, very well. I'm not in the camp of no book should ever be made into TV or film because it never works, because I don't entirely think that's true. But there are some, and I'm not counting things like 50 Shades of Grey that should have never been made into a book, let alone a film. That I just think fitted better as a book. You were able to get more information. You were able to, actually care about characters more. There are some where it just doesn't work.
I was gonna go on about something. Oh yeah. This is technically both this is way overrated, and also touches on. I am jumping around on the topics, but an ending to a story that completely ruined the story. So I have no idea how to pronounce this surname. Joe Abercrombie has a series called The First Law, which I kinda sorta enjoyed until quite literally the last 10 pages, which soured the entire fucking story for me.
You weren't far off. It's Abercrombie,
Nice.
so you were pretty close.
So contextually, or to add some context, the 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 series is kind of a gritty fantasy heroes going on a quest story with very little information, like given why are we going on this quest, yada yada yada. And at the very very end of the last book, we get told that there was no point whatsoever in what just happened in the last 3 books. There was no point. It was a political play to for no reason, basically, and then it ends. It is actually the first book series I have literally given away because it did not deserve to be in my bookshelf anymore. It was. Eli got mad.
Eli got mad. Okay, so are there any book adaptations that you think are better than the original?
Wouldn't that be movie and series adaptation?
No, I think it means like an adaptation of a previous story. So a book becoming a new book.
Be also all types of fairy tales becoming modern interpretations or such.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Not at the top of my head.
Yeah.
Bye.
I don't really have an opinion on this one.
Oh.
So, actually, I'm still waiting to get
To the bombshell.
yeah,
Yeah.
Go on then.
which might not be as triggering as I want it to be, but also could be. Okay, romance isn't a genre.
Wrong.
Romance is not a genre. Romance is
Why?
a plot. Romance is a plot technique. It is not a genre.
What defines a genre?
If you look at if the entire point of a book is for two people to fall in love through a matter of coincidences and other such things, it's not a good book. I'm sorry, it's poor. Romance serves as a way to develop characters, as a way to cause conflict. It serves as a point of escalation for the plot. It is not a genre in and of itself. It can be a sub genre or include, but a book cannot be purely a romance.
Okay, so for all the romance
the
novels that are
romance
out there,
genre would
what
like to
genre
disagree.
are they?
Say that again.
For all the romance books that are out there, what genre are they?
They would be classed as dramatic novels.
Are they?
I
No.
would say
I
so.
think there's a very
Oh,
big
wait.
difference between a drama novel and a romance novel.
Mm-hmm.
Go on.
You can have romance novels that don't contain like mass amounts of drama. It can
Okay,
just be
so then
a love story.
they would be slice of life. They would not be romance. Romance is
No,
romance is
wait,
a genre.
no, okay. Now I'm actually getting semi-triggered. If slice of life is a genre, then
So is
romance is a
romance.
genre.
No.
Yeah, yes.
Because
Yes,
romance is about the
no.
romance.
Like, if slice of life is not just a subdivision of a drama genre, then romance can't be that.
It can.
Slice of life.
Because slice
No,
of life is literally just observing the passage of time as someone's life goes on.
Okay,
Romance
romance
is
is
something
doing that, focusing on the romance.
Romance is a point that comes within that, but it is not a genre in and of itself.
no.
I'm sorry,
No,
romance is a subgenre of.
sorry. Drama is observing dramatic events through the passage of time. That is a slice of life
Yeah, they're
description.
essentially the same.
No. They are the same thing. You can't differentiate between these if you're gonna say that romance isn't a genre. There are differences between what we normally call a drama novel, slice of life, slice of knife, life.
Slice
Nice.
of life.
I can't. Thank you. All right. And a romance novel. I know because I adore drama novels and I adore slice of life stories.
You do
But
not
I
read
can't
romance.
deal with romance. I can't read on romance novels to save my life.
Because I'm sorry, it is a. If it is considered a genre, it is a poor genre. Because again,
I don't
romance.
agree.
Yeah, no, because romance serves as a way to push plot, or it's a way to serve character development. Romance is a tool within novels. It is not a genre in and of itself, and I
Technically,
stand by that.
anything is a tool within a novel, any genre. You can pick apart any novel out there and break it down into genres and subgenres and plot points, and
Tropes.
that's writing.
Okay, so why is it then that you can essentially stick romance in any other genre of novel?
You can do that with anything.
Well,
You can stick
No.
drama in any genre
No.
of novel. You can.
No. I'm gonna make it worse. What was your favorite genre? Sai?
Mine,
Fantasy.
I
Yeah.
enjoy fantasy.
Okay. Explain to me how you cannot stick fantasy into any other story. I'll wait.
Because there becomes a point where you cannot have, say, if you're going for, say, historical and you're basing it off true facts, you cannot have history in there, but you will definitely have romance in there. You cannot have fantasy in there, sorry, but you will
No, but
definitely have
you're
romance.
not. Are you talking? Are we talking fiction or non-fiction? Because they're two separate entities for a reason.
Honey, what's your the
Any
dragon story
fiction,
you keep
any
reading?
fiction novel.
His Majesty's Dragon.
The
Tamar.
historically based with fantasy element story?
Yes,
How can it be historically based with fantasy elements? Those are two contradictions.
Because
during
it's
the
based.
Napoleon Wars,
Yeah, Napoleonic Wars,
with the
and they add
addition
in
of
dragons.
having dragons.
Then it's a fantasy novel, it's not a historical novel. You can take inspiration from history.
Technically, it's historical fantasy.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is a subgenre called historical fantasy, which is one of my absolute favorite genres ever.
Also, there have been many, many books written in historical fantasy where they've essentially taken a real life story that's happened and then added fantasy elements. We've seen it with the World Wars, we've seen it with Napoleonic, we've seen it with the Battle of Waterloo, we've seen it with all sorts. You take
No, then
any.
that's just fantasy with historic inspiration.
No, it's
because
called
Yes.
historical
Only there was a
fantasy.
simpler word.
Again,
Sorry,
So-
and no, and
but-
Eli is right. You can take any, and I'm going to preface this with fiction, a work of fiction, not non-fiction, not a biopic or real life, but you can take any fiction novel and add fantasy to it. So therefore you would be making it a fantasy as a subgenre.
But
So
by
No,
then its
definition,
primary
By
genre
no.
is fantasy. Then its primary genre is fantasy.
No.
Well,
Why? Why
No.
does
Yes.
fantasy then take over? That's not the main plot point.
Because the end. Because the. If it is not. If it is not an actual event and it is made up and you start adding dragons and magic and stuff into it, it does primarily become fantasy because
Why?
it is a fantasy in and of itself.
Why?
No, but wait. Why? The question is, why does fantasy have primacy?
Priority.
Priority. Yeah, sure.
Because the literal definition of a fantasy is a made up scenario.
Okay.
No, that's the literal
So,
definition of fiction.
Yes.
Yes, but even so, but by that definition, sci-fi would be fantasy.
Well, no, because I'm saying if fantasy elements are in it, sci-fi is based off things that could potentially happen.
No, sci-fi is just based off anything that could be explained in a scientific fashion instead of
Yeah.
it's magic. It's still technically made up. There's plenty of things in sci-fi that will never and could never exist, but it's
No,
science.
but we know.
But it's explained in the world as science. That's why it's
So therefore it's sci-fi, not
fictional
fantasy.
science.
Spice melange is a
But
good example.
No,
of
but
that.
the fact of the matter is, the reason you have classification for books for a reason, and you have genre and subgenre, and they exist for a reason, but nothing takes precedent. You can have a horror with a fantasy genre, like subgenre, but you can also have a fantasy with a horror subgenre. All you're
Like, one
talking
of my
about in terms of what is the main genre and what is a subgenre is what is flair, what is added in to enhance parts of it but isn't the main point. So you can absolutely have fantasy as a subgenre and not have it then take over the world.
William Gibson, the guy who wrote Neuromancer, is very, very good at writing sci-fi thrillers where the Sprawl series, the first 3 books, are very, very sci-fi heavy. And then his other series have sci-fi elements, but they are primarily thrillers.
But the entire point of if we're going to say that romance is a genre, then the entire point of a romance novel is to create a set of scenarios in which two people fall in love, which is why they end up with so many random coincidences and
Yes, usually to a
Yes,
happy
that is the
ending.
point
no,
of
but
romance.
that's not.
Why?
But this is where I sit there and go, if the entire point of that, if that is the entire point, then it is pointless.
Why?
No.
Yes.
But
For
why?
you, it
no,
is
no, no,
point-
no, no, hang on. Why? Why is it pointless?
Because you're essentially going, okay, I'm coming up with a completely either. Okay, we've watched a lot of things that have, and we've read things that have romance, right? And the amount of like forced misunderstandings and shit that happen in order to create a sense of conflict in romance novels is appalling. It
Yes,
is,
which is why I don't read those with miscommunication.
and this is
Like-
where I go. Romance, so as a tool, romance is much better utilized, and I don't think it should be its own independent genre. I think romance
Well,
should be either a
unfortunately.
subgenre or it should be a tool in which authors use to enhance others. In to me personally,
No, but you do have
romance
that. You
is
have
a
things like
seasoning. It is not a meal in and of itself.
no, but that again, one that is for you personally because actually, as it stands, romance novels are the highest earning genre of fiction.
Yeah.
And two, you do have that. You have romantasy, where it is primarily a fantasy story, but with a romance subplot, and therefore that is part of the storyline, but it's not the be all and end all.
No, that can't be. That romantasy sounds horrible. That's a
Is it?
fantasy novel that uses romance
No.
as a plot.
No,
Yes.
Yeah, yes,
name,
and it-
no.
No.
This is
Can I
just a,
please
you're
talk
now
this
having
time?
you're literally having a problem with naming conventions.
Yeah.
No, I'm having a problem. Yes, because naming something correctly is incredibly important.
Okay, then you
Because
can
if you're
never call
defining
it sci-fi again,
Okay.
because it's not. It's science fiction. You can never shorten anything to make it easier to say. The fact is, it
I'm
exists.
sorry.
No, it exists as a standard.
Okay. A romantic fantasy and a fantasy that has romantic elements within it are very different things.
Okay, let's. ACOTAR is romantasy.
Yes.
It is a fantasy story set in a fantasy world where the main storyline, realistically, is about the romance. There are technically two main storylines happening.
Okay, and you've literally said to me, it's so bad, but that makes it good.
Yes.
Yes, that's my personal feelings on it. There are people out there who can't stand it, and there are people out there who absolutely love everything about it.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter is, it is romantasy. Whereas then you have novels like Fourth Wing, where actually the fantasy is the big storyline and the romance is a side plot.
Okay,
You don't actually need it. It wouldn't really,
This is that bad. This is that bad that it's actually good because it's funny how bad it is. It's not a stellar review to sit there and go, "This should be its own genre." You're literally sat there going,
No.
No,
This is-
no,
But
hang
I-
on. Because
but-
I
but
feel
wait,
that way
but I
about
have
one
one.
book doesn't mean that the genre shouldn't exist. I've
and
read
you shouldn't
plenty
use
of
it as an
romance.
example to try and push this point."
Wait. So, the Night Angel trilogy is a romance story with fantasy elements. That's not even a hot take. The main driving point of this entire fucking story is a love triangle. That's it. Yes, you're done. Like, does the fantasy element need to be there in order to make the story work? Yes. Removing the Cacarifers, or however you pronounce that, from the story would be very, very strange. But in essence, it's a romance story with fantasy elements.
No, because so what happens to her because he didn't act fast enough, and the entire thing was that he was protecting her and shit. Fair enough. However, his entire other motivation was to get all three of them out of the slums, and then once the shit happened to both Jarl and to Olgal, it was like, okay, they literally said, you need to now get out of here and make a life for yourself. So romance wasn't the driving factor in that.
Yes.
Hang on,
And
weren't you
then
complaining earlier that Aragon was poor because the romance wasn't done correctly?
Again, it was they built up to something.
But that's romance. That had a romance subplot in it.
I'm not saying it can't be a subplot. I'm saying it can't be its own independent genre. A novel can't specifically be
no,
a romantic novel.
I wanna give a response to that. Yes, the point for Kyler to get out of the slums is to get him, Jarl, and Dolgal out of the slums because many reasons which should not be mentioned on stream, honestly. So yes, and then he does that, and they get out of the slums, and stuff happens, and then a major plot point is I don't remember Madam whatever her name is. He keeps looking after Dolgal constantly. That's a major driving plot point. And then we introduced Vi into this soup, and now we have a love triangle. And everything in this book series stems from that love triangle. Everything happens because of that love triangle. Kyler wouldn't be involved if it wasn't for that love triangle. He would
No,
have just
Kyler
gone.
would
I'd like to
Kyler
just-
would still have been He would have still ended up with Durzo, despite
No,
what
no,
happened
he
because of
would
the
have
Bleach.
Yes, he would have been involved with Durso, and then the invasion would have happened, and when he would have fucked off, he stayed because of Vi and whatever Doll Girl's
No. So
eventual
they
name is.
tried to have a life together, and actually, he couldn't stop doing. He couldn't stop being an assassin. It was literally the fact that his romance couldn't fix him. So it's. And again, my point wasn't that it shouldn't be in novels because it is an incredibly strong
I would
tool.
also
It's
like
in,
to. I'm just
no.
gonna
My
chuck a little
point.
fact in here that actually the romance style is one of the oldest literary genres in existence.
May I have a moment to say my piece now?
Yes.
You may, Une.
Thank you. So, romance novels or
Dehydration
romance stories
detected.
romance stories in general, the focus is on the relationship and the emotional investment they have towards each other or other people in general. And that, for instance, a lot of romance I read is pretty much a meet cute and then them figuring out that they do actually have feelings for each other and then how they end up together. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. And I read it because of the emotions I get when reading it and the emotion they have in the stories. What else would you call that? When there's no other element in a story.
observing the relationship between two people and watching them live their lives. Slice of life.
But
You don't
that
always watch them
isn't
live
a
their
genre
lives.
of fiction in books.
You're reading it because the point is to watch them fall in love.
Yes.
And get their happy ever after. You're not watching them live their lives, you're watching them fall in love.
Yes. The entire point in what is reading and seeing how they fall in love and how they experience their love.
I've missed so much.
What is that anime?
Through a
The
again,
hot
through a
take.
series of really, really like again, you look at like the events that go on to cause conflict are either so
No, like
forced or
no. For instance, may I have may I use an example? There's new guy moves back to his old hometown, moves in next door to an old classmate, and they had a great relationship before. They were friends, nothing more, nothing less. And when he comes back, she might be a single mom, for instance. And since they were friends when they grew up, he starts helping out if she needs something. And then they develop feelings because they actually like each other. And eventually, like, they go on a date. They have a fun time. And then eventually they, depending on the story,
okay,
might have sex.
okay, and the conflict that occurs between that, or is there no conflict? This is just everything is hunky dory fine.
No, it might be like trying to figure out how to fit their life together, like any regular person need to do. Like how will he work with her child and her ex, for instance?
And again, you can have subgenres to a romance. It could be that it's a drama subplot. It could be that it is a. There are so many things that you can add in to build up.
And I think romance. No, then I think that it becomes that, and the romance is the subplot. I genuinely think you cannot have.
What is the name of that anime?
Which one?
The one that you introduced me to, with the
Horimiya?
yes, thank you.
Okay.
That's the one.
Why?
But how is having
Dehydration detected.
romance as the main thing any different than having mystery or horror as the main thing?
I mean, technically speaking, Horimiya is a Japanese romance anime. Some consider it to be slice of life, but it isn't, it's romance. It was also named the best romance anime of 2021. It is.
I would call it a slice of life.
Yeah,
You would call it
but
that,
that's
doesn't
not
mean
what
it
it
is.
is called.
It's primarily
That's
a romance.
That's the whole point of hot takes, isn't it? The whole point of hot takes is you aren't probably going to agree with me. I'm not stating this as fact, but my personal opinion is that you cannot have a romance should not in and of itself be a genre. It is a plot development tool, or at most it is a subplot. It is a subgenre because there are strong elements of it within something. But it is more, to me personally, it is much more of a motivator for plot development because people do shit for love than it is a genre in and of itself.
Again, you are entitled to your opinion. I disagree, and I
knew
find
it'd
it
be a hot take.
again.
I
I
knew it'd
find
be a hot
it
take.
no, but I find it more amusing as a hot take from you, who is somebody who has enjoyed romance, pure romance genred.
I will
media.
never watch something. Yeah, but it has to have something that goes along with it.
Yeah, but
There
that
are
just
so
means
many
you
things-
like romance with a subgenre.
No, there has to no. Romance is the
Yes.
subgenre.
No,
No,
it
no.
isn't.
Yes.
That bit isn't up for
Yes.
debate because your opinion of something doesn't change the fact. Horimiya, for instance, factually is a romance. The slice of life aspect is a subgenre. You enjoy that. You enjoy both
love
sides of it. You
Horimiya.
and I have had
I will sit
conversations about
there.
how you enjoy their love story. You are enjoying
I'm not saying
the romance.
I do not enjoy the book, but it is a. I'm
No,
sorry,
it isn't.
It is
It's
a
the main
subgenre.
point. It's
It
the
is.
full
No.
main point of it is watching them fall in
No.
love and what they
Yeah.
overcome and how they go about their lives. But the whole point of watching it is you are watching the story of two people fall in love. That is romance, pure and simple.
No, one of my favorite bits about it is his development because I
Yes.
relate to him.
Okay,
but-
but
this is
his
why I'm saying-
development is to further develop the romance.
No,
Yes. And actually,
His growth
even
as a
better,
person.
it's miscommunication romance. The two things that you've complained about not liking. Because the whole point of it is that everyone sees him
she's
as a bad
crazy.
boy and everyone sees
No.
her as a good girl, but actually she's friggin' nutso and he's a softie. It is miscommunication romance at its finest.
no, because one of the most frustrating things about that anime is how ridiculous she is. That's the bit that there is
And
some
yet it's still
aspects
one of your favourites. You can dislike parts about a
because of-
book or a
because of
TV
his
show or a
develop-
film, but you
because
still
of his
enjoy it
develop-
and you enjoy watching them fall in love.
No,
Therefore, you are
because I
enjoying
enjoy
the
his develop-
romance.
No, I
Yes.
look at
You literally
one of
introduced
my
me
f-
to it as this is one of the best romance animes.
no, I enjoy its romantic elements, but I wouldn't sit there and go, I am here for the romance in it. I love his development in it, in the same way that I watch A Silent Voice. A Silent Voice has very strong romantic elements in it. His character development as someone who has made a shit ton of mistakes and is struggling with mental health and things is my primary focus watching that. I experienced that and I cry at the stuff with him in it, not at their relationship. Like it's not because again, it's the personal development someone has that is driven by the romantic subplot. It's not, and I will stand by it. I don't think romance is a genre. I think it has to be a subplot that drives something else.
Okay. I have, since we're on the subject of anime, there's an anime short. I think it's like At most, it's 20 minutes long. And it's called Voices from a Distant Star. And it is the most heartbreakingly sweet yet devastating romance story. And the only, there are a lot of things that happen in that series, but the main thing, short, the only thing that matters there is the romance. Everything else is kind of irrelevant. The romance matters. There are a lot of examples of this. Unfortunately, I am a bigger purveyor of anime than anything else. But Your Name came out here a couple of years ago. Is also a fantasy kind of sort of time travel thingy where the fantasy is completely secondary to the love story, to the romance.
But that's the bit that makes a difference between the main genre and a subgenre.
Yeah,
Is
the
if you can
romance
remove
is,
it and it makes no difference to the story, it's a subgenre. With things like Horimiya, you couldn't remove the romance and still have the same show. Because there would be no growth of characters, there would be no anything. It just wouldn't exist.
and that's my wholehearted recommend, by the way. Voices from a Distant Star. Like, watch it.
Cry.
Yes. Sit there quivering.
Cry a lot.
Yes.
Cry some more.
Which brings us to ending expectations.
Yes.
Or do you want to do this or should I?
No, you go for it.
Okay. Do you have any strong preference for happy, sad, or ambiguous endings? Which one annoys you the most when it's used? And is there a book with an ending that you think ruined an otherwise good story? I did the second part of this, but I do have an opinion on the first.
For strong preference for endings, for me, depends entirely on the story.
Uh-huh.
I have to be honest. Some of them, I think, deserve a happy ending, and that's a good ending point. And I like that. Some of them, where they kind of tack on a happy ending, I'm like, no. I think we could have had better. And the same, there are times when you get an ambiguous ending, and you just think, really, you're gonna leave this like this, like all that we've worked for, and this is how we end it. So I think for me, it is purely. It's not one in particular that annoys me. It certainly depends on the story itself. But there are times where an ending will annoy me, regardless of whether it's happy, sad, or ambiguous. Purely because I don't think it's the right fit for how the story has gone, especially if it is a true full ending. If there's never going to be any more, it's not an ending of this book to be followed by something else. It's just purely, this is the end. I think it needs to end well, depending on what that ending is.
So my opinion here, and I don't. Okay. I generally don't like sad endings. It takes a lot to earn a sad ending. With that said, my absolute favorite end of basically any stories is where I'm sitting in my chair being completely ravaged and destroyed. This isn't a book, but the ending of The Last of Us hits every note on that. I feel miserable. And that I really enjoyed that. It worked for me. Which I guess fit closer with ambiguous rather than sad. Annihilation has this too. But that's very squarely in ambiguous.
I get slightly annoyed at happy endings for happy endings' sake. When the other the conclusion of the book leans to more towards like an okay ending, so to speak. Not everyone wins, but an okay ending. And then the last like 5 pages, and then all of a sudden everyone is happy. Just
Yeah, I think happy endings can be some of the worst done because there are times where they are either disingenuous or rushed. And you're like, wait, hang on. And you're like flipping backwards, going, weren't we just like, wasn't everyone fighting 2 pages ago? And now what? Everyone's just sort of gone, we agree to disagree, and everyone's happy, and now we're all going to skip off into the sunset. And you're like, okay.
yeah.
This is kind of why I don't like jumping back to Hunger Games and how it were how the movies ended versus how the books ended, where the books lean very heavily into the fact that Katniss is extremely PTSD, extremely depressed, but just pushing through it. And the movies end on a kind of sort of happy note. And I don't feel it's deserved. Actually, another one of those is Lord of the Rings. Now that I think about it.
I don't know if I entirely agree with Lord of the Rings.
Go on.
Well, I think there was still. I don't think it was a true happy ending.
No. Yeah, no. It's not a true happy ending. It's more the Frodo has to leave because he can't be on this plane of existence anymore. Just for a lot of reasons. But I feel the books. No, wait. No. The movies actually end on a somber note there, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that would have been a story that, if it tried to have a happy end, wouldn't have worked.
Yeah,
Because that
I
is
think if they'd have, I think if all of a sudden you'd had a sort of magical, the ring is destroyed, and now everything has immediately gone back to perfect.
Mhm.
Like everything is just the minute that happened, all of the evil
No,
is just whooshed away. It would have been very
A
much like,
new-
what the fuck happened here?
a new equilibrium has to be established. That doesn't necessarily have to be a positive. Mistborn does it incredibly well, where following the events of the first book, where the consequences were not
Fully
understood
understood.
properly.
Yeah.
Yep. That a new equilibrium is established, but it is very much not one that is positive. And this is where I think if you thought you have to establish a new starting point, especially if you're doing a sequel of some point, or if the book ends and it's just like a one, a single novel, an independent novel, or whatever you want to call it. The ending has to establish what the results of the event were for essentially for closure. If you don't have that, I think almost leaving endings open to interpretation can ruin a lot of it. Simply for the fact of not knowing what the intended outcome was can be very frustrating. So yeah, I would say a new equilibrium has to be established, or else, for me personally, I don't like books that have a open end on what's going to happen.
Or the
Unless
sort of, we've
that's
got a
leading
long road
into a
ahead of
sequel.
us. End scene.
No, but I like those endings where it is open ended, where the story Um, the story is done, but what comes after isn't like set in stone, and it's not sequel bait. To clarify, it is not sequel bait. I like the um, I like the ambiguity, but yeah, some sort of like equilibrium needs to be established, but that can be a throwaway line, honestly, for me. The hell are you doing, Cap?
No, I think ultimately, yeah. If you, because again, obviously, no. If the book ends, there are going to be events that happen beyond that that you can't predict, and so if they aren't described to you and stuff, then there is always going to be a sense of like ambiguity because you don't know what those characters are going to get to after the fact. But there still needs to be. What I'm saying is there has to be a baseline of like, did so and so live, so and so die? You have to know what happened to each of the characters, even if it is either like death or they went on a new adventure somewhere, or actually they decided to stay behind, or
So you don't mind ambiguity of what's going to happen going forward, but you don't want to be left with unanswered questions.
yes, I guess.
Yeah,
So,
I think that's fair. I think if you have a character especially that went missing, I mean, and again, Lord of the Rings would be a great example of that. If you never had anything after the ring was destroyed and that was just the end, you would be like, okay, but did they get down off the mountain? Did they meet up with everyone again? Did Aragon become king? Like, what happened to all these things? And there would be so many unanswered questions. You would just be like, oh, okay, but where's the rest of it? And I think
It
that's the
wouldn't have done
difference.
as well as it did.
No,
Had that
100%.
been the case.
No, absolutely. And again, I think a book needs to have a solid ending. If it leaves you waiting for another book, then they've not done their job correctly.
If another book is coming,
That's fine, because that's not an ending.
that's fine.
That's a cliffhanger is fine, because a cliffhanger has follow up. But if you end something with no intention of ever adding anything to it, then it needs to end in a secure, solid manner.
Yeah.
Whatever that
okay.
ending may be, I'm not that fussy, but there just needs to be a solidity, a finality to it.
I'm not sure I agree, but I might be misunderstanding. So I'm going to use Annihilation as a jumping off point, which I think I'm the only one who's read. So
Very possibly.
yeah, in the book, there's a ever expanding zone that we can't see into. Like, it's on Earth, something crashed on Earth, but we can't like observe into it. It's basically black space. But we can go into it, and the book follows a recon expedition into this area. And we know the zone changes you. And at the climax of the story, we realize that the zone can basically make perfect copies of whoever is in the zone. And a bunch of stuff happens. And the main character gets ejected from the zone after witnessing a perfect replica of herself being made. and the story ends with us not knowing if we are still following the original main character or if we somehow switched to the perspective of the replica. And that's where it ends. And I adore that ending. Like she manages to leave the zone. That's it. But we don't know if it's the original person or if it's like something else. And I don't know if that fits your like if that is too ambiguous for you guys.
I think
or...
for me that would be too ambiguous because I'd be waiting for the what happens next. And
Ah.
not in the case of, like, again, using Lord of the Rings as an example, I don't need a what happens next in a sense of, like, how did they clear up all, like, everything surrounding Mount Doom? How did they clear up, like, the orcs that have been running around and sort out the infighting and, bring everyone together under the banner of, Aragon is the king and all this, that, and the other. I don't need that because enough information was given for me to be like, okay, they're going to go off and sort things out now. Cool. With that, the fact that you've got something and you don't know, is it the real her? Is it a clone? What's going to happen? That, for me, would be like, okay, so where's the next bit?
It's more of a, you've just followed a lot of people through some pretty serious events. I want to understand how to phrase this. Their lives have to continue on beyond the fact, right?
Otherwise, no stories would ever end.
So, were they rewarded for it? Did actually they go their separate ways because of infighting and a difference of opinions? Did an event happen in the end that caused some conflict and they stepped away? Like that sort of. And again, the ending has to kind of be based off of things that have been discussed throughout the story. So if you've had two characters who, for example, one of the characters is an older father figure, and they halfway through they pick up a young girl who joins the party, and he actually ends up adopting her or taking on that role or something. Like I want to see at the end it doesn't have to be a major interaction, but in like an epilogue style kind of thing. Just a very small description of potentially, the main character walks past them on the street and they're out having lunch together or something. Like just to show that life has continued on afterwards and what sort of things have developed from the experience that they've all just had.
Yeah, I think what you described, Eli, I would call a cliffhanger. Because you have questions.
Because it's a what if.
It's an unanswered question. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would call that a cliffhanger because you are left with a question that you are kind of almost desperate to know the answer to, and then you're never going to get it. And actually, that would irritate the hell out of me.
So that might be the difference then. Because having that unanswered question, I don't need to know the answer. The fact that I don't know the answer is what makes that ending for me, because there is no answer.
Yeah,
or all answers are equally valid, I guess.
I don't mind cliffhanger endings within a series. And I think it's quite good that in more modern novels we're getting a trigger warning of whether a book is a cliffhanger or not. I think that's good to know ahead of time because for a lot of people they don't enjoy it. So I think it's good to say, hey, this book has a cliffhanger ending. If it's not something you're going to enjoy, don't read it. But I don't like the end of a series or an end of a standalone to have a cliffhanger. because I just don't like feeling like there is more to be said that's just never going to be said. Because again, to me, it just feels unfinished.
Do you not find that being like having a trigger warning being almost like too much though? Because you can read something potentially not like the ending, but love the characters and the story,
But again, that's
and
personal
actually
preference.
enjoy the ending, but just not the fact that maybe a couple of questions were left unanswered. You can love 99% of it, and what you're doing by adding that warning on is almost.
No,
I
because
get trigger
again,
warnings for like
but for a lot of
abuse
people,
and
no, because for a
shit,
lot of
but
people,
like
especially if it's within a series, they would be more interested in waiting until the entire series is finished to read it all in one go. Like, it doesn't particularly faze me. I can read a series that has a cliffhanger ending and wait because I actually like the wait. Because it builds up and then I get the opportunity to reread the book when the next one is released and then continue on. But for some people, they just don't enjoy it. And especially, again, more specifically, when it's on a standalone where there is not going to be a second. Having a book that leaves you with a cliffhanger ending and you're never going to get answers to those questions is just not it for a lot of people. And I think that's perfectly fair. So I don't think it's too much to say, by the way, this book ends in a cliffhanger. So if that's not something you're going to enjoy, I'm giving you a heads up now so it doesn't ruin your reading experience, because I hate for you to read the book and love 99% of it and then hate the fact that it has a cliffhanger and that ruin it for you.
That's the worst.
Yeah,
in my
100% is.
If you have an if you go to if you do an event, right, and you love 99% of it, but there's one interaction you have with an individual that was like really not fun, you still enjoyed 99% of it.
that can
And I actually
ruin
think
the
it,
But
entire
that, yeah, but
memory
that
of it.
can
Recency
no,
bias.
no.
No, for me, I say it can ruin the entire thing.
Recency
but
bias.
but that's silly.
No.
I don't.
So,
I'm not saying it makes sense. I'm just saying that's how it is for me.
So, for a lot of people,
Yeah.
like especially with recency bias. So, if you have, especially if it's the end event, the very last thing. So, say you go to a convention, you have a brilliant fucking time. It's amazing. And then at the very end, you have some sort of altercation with someone else. That's going to color the entire experience.
Because
Because
that's
how
the
brains
human
work.
brain works.
It's the business. The one thing you're told when you start or you run a business is good experiences within your business will get told to 3 people. Bad experiences will get told to 30.
Yeah, which is why, for instance, we are told that with our kids, for every bad interaction, you need at least 3 to counter.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't understand that, if I'm being completely honest.
Because the fact of the matter is, in the same way that if you're having a really terrible day and you have one massively positive interaction, it can fix an entirely awful day for you. The same is said of the negative.
I'm not saying it shouldn't affect you, because it will do. That I completely understand. But to let it ruin the entire experience,
It's not but you're
No,
saying let as if it's a choice. It's not. The fact of the matter is, if you have a negative experience, and especially again, timing matters as well. If you have a negative experience at the beginning of something, like again using Eli's experience, if you go to a con and you have a negative interaction at the beginning, but the rest of the day is amazing, you're more likely to forget about that negative experience because it's going to be essentially strangled out by all the positivity that came afterwards. And those first couple of interactions might be difficult because that negative is going to be majorly in your head, but after a while, and with continued positivity, it's going to get drowned out. The same is said in reverse.
It's also how marketing works. It is literally how marketing works. So there's a reason you have the CTAs, call to action, at the very end of
Anything.
Let's take YouTube. Everyone watches YouTube. So at the very end of a YouTube video, you always have a call to action. That call to action could be as simple as "Thank you for my Patreon supporters," which isn't a explicit call to action, but you get a list of names scrolling through. That's what you can remember a lot from that video, but what's going to stick out is I think it's the last 15 seconds.
Yeah, 100%. Twitch is another good one. It's why they say about I've been doing the creators camp at the moment, and they talk about when you get to a point where you can add adverts onto your streams. If you put them all at the beginning, you're going to start people off negatively to start with, because nobody wants to sit through a minute or 2 minutes of adverts just to get to your stream. They'll get bored, they'll turn off, they'll leave. But you also don't want to put them right at the end, because people aren't going to sit when they know your stream is finished and they've got nothing to come back for. They're not going to sit through 2 minutes of advertising, and also it's going to colour their recollection of your stream if they've just come off something that was funny or heartwarming or whatever, to immediately hit by adverts, because to be perfectly honest, nobody likes adverts. And so you are better to pepper them in very small amounts throughout the stream, so you've got that positive thinking of, you're enjoying that, you're going to enjoy it when it comes back in 15 seconds. Hang around for 15 seconds. And and again, with the business thing about the positive and negative conversations, it is so true, because anyone I have ever spoken to who has had something to say about a restaurant they visited or a shop they went to or some form of business, I will hear far more and talk for far longer when somebody has had a negative experience than I will with someone who has a positive one. Because if it's a positive one, you're talking it up because it's fun, and you'll probably talk to the people who are closest to you. If it's a negative one, your brain wants to tell people because it's like a warning. And so you will then tell more people, because I went to this restaurant and I came away with food poisoning. You're going to tell 50 people because you want to warn those 50 people, don't go there, you're going to get food poisoning. But I went there, the servers were amazing, the food was fantastic. You'll probably tell your close friends and family because you would want them to experience that.
Can people not separate it?
No,
because not everyone on the planet is autistic.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying that to be flippant or anything. It is genuinely a difference in the way our brains work.
Because I can literally go through any experience and look at it and go, okay, this might have been horrible, but I took something from it, or I did enjoy this aspect of it, or whatever. I look at it I look at some of the worst relationships I've been in, and I'm like, oh, this is horrible for 5 of the 6 months, but the first month was really, really good, and we did a lot of cool things, or whatever it might be.
No, so hang on there, because I'm going to call you out on something here. You, along with just about everyone else on the planet, does not speak like that. You will say, the first month of the relationship was really great, and then the negatives will follow.
But it's the focus on the negative of it tainting the entire experience. Accepting that negative things happen is one thing, but then having it
in small doses, people will accept that negative things have happened. If I go through, if I go away for a week, and in that entire week the only bad thing that happened was, a server dropped my drink at one point, then I can be like, do you know what? The entire holiday was fantastic. There was a moment here, but overall it was fantastic, and I can focus on the positive of that. But it depends on the positive and the negative, and it depends on where they are. And it is very much the same with books, just to bring this back into a book focus. If you read a book and you've enjoyed it all the way through, and then at the end it gets ruined for whatever reason, bad writing, taking the story in a different direction than what you had anticipated it was going to be, or what you wanted for it, because at the end of the day, a writer's work is a writer's work, but a reader's work, you are going to have expectations. Especially when you've read along, especially when it's a series and you've been with there for a long time, you're going to have an expectation of what's coming. And there are times where that's going to catch you off guard in a good way, but there have been times where that will catch you off guard in a bad way.
This is obviously like I went on the rant about Aragon earlier.
Yeah, 100%.
Like I wouldn't sit like the ending is incredibly frustrating, and ultimately I think his writing throughout could have been better. However, I will also sit there and go, he did have some incredibly good ideas. I just don't think they were expanded on enough or
Okay.
reused.
So my question is to
And so
you:
it's
would you recommend anyone to go and read Aragon?
as an introduction into fantasy writing, yeah, definitely. Especially if they're of a younger audience.
You've no
I
other
wouldn't-
books that you would recommend over it that don't have the issues that you have with Aragon?
Because I think every book has its issue. Depends what you depends.
I
What
think
you,
that entirely depends on what you're viewing by way of issue. I think there's an issue. Again, there's different severities of issues, but then also my second question is: would you sit and read it again, knowing what you know about it?
I've read Aragon the entire series 6 times.
Okay, but would you sit down
The
and
age
read it
of-
now,
Yeah, because
knowing
again,
knowing you're not going to enjoy the end for all of the reasons that you've named?
as I've said, I've read it. Just the entire
No,
series
but
I've read
wait.
6 times.
Yes, but wait. So there's a difference between being disappointed in the ending.
And hating an ending.
This is
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
where I
no,
think
but wait.
this is where I think a trigger warning is.
Yeah, no, but okay. So
Because
wait. So I had an example of a book series where the ending ruined the entire book series. If there was a trigger warning at the very beginning of that series, which quite literally said, by the way, the ending will make everything in this series pointless, I would never have read that series. But that's the ending. I would, if I could choose, because I spent about 3 weeks reading this book series, because it was a slog to get through. It was enjoyable, but it was
Tedious.
no
Times.
hard to read for me. It didn't have the flow I'm used to. If I could have spent those 3 weeks staring at paint dry and doing nothing else, I would have chosen that.
no, and that's
Yeah,
and
but
that's
that's
fair. But you won't. But my point is you wouldn't if a trigger warning had been on that. So we're talking about cliffhangers, right? If, for example,
kind of yeah.
Yeah, but if if this example was it had a cliffhanger and
Mm.
because again you can have a very similar experience. You could have a cliffhanger that leaves you absolutely infuriated and a cliffhanger that, although you don't like cliffhangers, wasn't as bad as you thought it might because of the way it's written, because of how much you were hung off the cliff, I guess is the phrasing I'm going to use for that.
Or
And if
how
you
I think
simply
how you were hung off the
But
cliff.
if you simply say warning, trigger warning, this story has a cliffhanger.
Mm.
How many people are going to then walk away from that might have actually really enjoyed it and then been slightly disappointed by the ending, as compared to
Yeah, but what you're taking from that is the fact of the matter is for someone to look at a book, read the trigger warning and have warning, this ends on a cliffhanger and go, I am categorically not going to read it. That is probably somebody who has had experience of reading books with cliffhangers and has never enjoyed it as an ending and has gone, this is not of interest to me. So they're probably not missing out on anything. And I say that as
It's the
somebody who has
probably
DNF'd a
not-
book for
However-
having
But
bad
wait.
spelling.
it's the
On that-
probably not that gets me because you can't
but
make
wait.
a judgment.
No, but-
There are very few things that you can make a judgment on before you experience it. And I say very
Yeah.
few things because there are things, obviously, that you can sit there and go, I absolutely 100% hate this.
But when it comes to cliffhangers, for me, if I know there's gonna be a cliffhanger, then I can prepare myself that I won't get a full conclusion or as much of a conclusion as you can get in a series if it's a series. And ready myself for that, because sometimes I actually need that because my brain is the way it is. But I also understand that that's not everyone's brain.
But this
No,
is
I get
okay.
it. The
But
first
this
thing
is
I'll
where
do
then I
if I
think the
see that a
naming.
book has, if a book states that it ends in a cliffhanger, I will look into things that will factor into the decision of whether I read it or not. One I will
And
look
also, it
into
usually
is it a
doesn't go
part of a
under a
series?
trigger warning. It
Yeah.
usually just goes as, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
this ends.
No, but this is
Yeah,
okay.
wait,
But
but that's
that's
semantics. But
But I
this
think
is where
that's what
okay. But you said a trigger warning. If you're calling it a trigger warning, if you literally just say, okay, there is a side note here that goes, contains a cliffhanger, that
yes,
is not
it's
a trigger warning.
no, but wait. Even if, because okay, so the main issue is you feel that people can be left out of experiences which they would enjoy. Am I understanding you correctly?
I I feel that just because you dislike a very particular aspect of something doesn't mean you will enjoy 99% of the other part of it, and that missing out on a 99% enjoyable experience because 1% of it was bad, even that, like, up to like 60, if you have an experience that was 60% enjoyable and 40% like, nah, I didn't really like it, or I'm not a fan of this, that you still enjoy it more than you don't, and you should focus on that. And that's my point, is that you, I think, miss out on a more enjoyable than not experience,
Okay.
which
So
you shouldn't.
for me,
I
why?
would lean on community for that. So there are a lot of media I would never have consumed because it's not the right genre or the number of factors. And then I um, then I got recommended it by someone who I actually trust to like. They have about the same taste as I do, and they literally go, so I don't like this part, which I also don't like. However, this is worth the read or the watch or whatever. And then I will seek it out. So that's the counter to like the trigger warning thing.
But also, just to play on that bit, a trigger warning is a warning for anything that's going to trigger a negative emotion. It doesn't necessarily have to be something as aggressive or as exponential as this has assault in it and therefore could trigger you from a previous trauma. It can just be anything within the book that can trigger a negative emotion. And for some people, if that is something that they dislike, why should it be a case of, well, yeah, but I think you should ignore the fact that you're going to dislike that and that essentially it's going to ruin an ending of a book that you might thoroughly enjoy because you'll thoroughly enjoy so much of it.
No, that's trigger warnings for any negative experience. If we're classing anything negative as being like, what are we classing as negative?
A cliffhanger can be a
I
negative
so
experience for someone.
I no, but
someone
being
with
no.
No, but okay. So, Sai, a trigger warning isn't just for a trauma response
No, a trigger
because
warning is for anything that's going to trigger a negative emotion.
yes.
That's why trigger warning lists
90% of
books.
life is going to trigger a negative emotion.
yeah,
That's not why life should come
yes.
with trigger warnings.
So we don't have to
No,
trigger
No,
it while we're
wait,
reading.
wait. Okay.
No, I'm
So,
sorry.
no, but no,
You
we
have
have different. No, we have different types of escapism. So for some escapism. So for some people, me being a good example of that, my type of escapism is the most soul crushing media you can find. That's what I enjoy. Um, and that does not leave me with positive experiences whatsoever. But that's what I enjoy. For a lot of other people, They want something. This is gonna sound so bad. Milk toast.
Yeah.
Something they can consume. Something that doesn't create negative responses.
No, trigger warnings for
half
me.
of the
So as somebody who reads extensively, and I'm sure will agree with me on this, trigger warnings for me are a fantastic way of seeing what I'm in a mood for. Because there are certain times where I'm in a mood where I don't want something that's going to make me feel negative. So having something at the beginning of a book that says, hey, this is going to have X, Y, and Z in it. Oh, and this is a standalone novel and it ends on a cliffhanger. I can go, that's fine. I'm not in the
ruined
mood for
part
this
of-
right now. So I'm going to leave
You
this
just
on the
don't
shelf.
read-
And I might come back to it in a couple of months. I might never read it, but there are also times where I'll come back to it when I'm in a different frame of mind. But the fact is,
Half of the wonder of reading a novel is the journey of discovering what's in it for the first time. And if you're told what's going to be in it,
but you're not told what's going to be in it. You're told. Again, you have to think about the fact that there are people out there who have had terrible experiences and don't want to read about them. That shouldn't, like, the idea of you're reading through a book for the first time and therefore you should go along with it regardless of its contents. I think that's wrong. Because
And
again,
also,
you look at something like,
you don't have to read the trigger warnings. You can just skip them. But it's nice to have them for those of us who trigger for specific things.
okay.
And get
But
a
my point is
really
triggering
bad
over.
reaction.
No, but my point is triggering over a cliff.
again, but I
A
think
trigger-
but you're thinking of trigger as in this big dramatic.
Yes, because that to me is what a trigger is.
But no,
That's
not at
what
all.
we've been
It's just a
saying.
terminology.
It's negative. It
It's
doesn't have to be
literally
a
just
huge one.
it's just terminology. I understand that it is terminology that is used a lot now to talk about very big things, and we hear it all the time. Oh my god, he said this and I'm triggered, and I get that. It doesn't take away from the fact that the actual technicality of it is a trigger warning is just a warning that there is elements within something that may trigger negative emotions or negative feelings or negative
anything
interactions.
in there could trigger it. Like
yes,
that's
which is
really-
why books come
Yeah.
with trigger warnings.
no,
Yeah, but no, okay.
no,
stop.
but because
So,
no,
but-
because I'm sorry. Being uncomfortable with something and being triggered by something are two very different things. To
I'm
me,
not
and you
uncomfortable
people-
at the idea of a cliffhanger. I don't enjoy them. They will entirely ruin a book for me in the right setting. If it's a series, I'm fine because I know there's going to be follow-up. If it is a standalone, I will likely not read it if it tells me it ends on a trigger warning. I don't care if 99% of the book is fantastic. You've ruined it
That
by
cliffhanger
ending
would
it.
ruin the book.
So why?
That's,
If you're going to have 99% of a good
then I
book,
think
make it
you're-
100% of a good book.
No, then I
But again,
I think
the
you're
thing
denying yourself.
No, but
No.
we.
Why? Okay,
that's the
okay, hang on.
problem. We
Okay,
can't
so
I have to
hold on.
ask here. No, I have to ask
100%.
here. Why is that any different than 99% of the book being good and one scene within it having something else that triggers me? Why is that any different? Because if I don't read a book because it contains the death of a child, for instance, because that's something I don't want to read about. I don't care if it's a page, I don't care if it's a sentence. I don't want to read about it. So if a book tells me, hey, this story contains the death of a child, I'm going to go, okay, cool. Might be for someone else, not for me. 99% of the book could be fantastic. It could be the best written piece of work I'm going to read in my lifetime. But they've ruined it for me because they've put something in that I physically do not want to read. That's no different. I'm not denying myself anything because there was something in it that was not for
But
me.
to me, there's a huge difference between talking about the death of a child and a cliffhanger.
No, but it's talking about the reader's experience. And the fact of the matter is, authors write books for readers to enjoy. If it has an element in it, whatever that element may be, that I am not going to enjoy, I'm not the reader for that book.
But I have a problem with it being classed as a trigger.
Again,
It's
because
just
that's
something-
because
no,
it doesn't
because there's a difference
faze
between
you.
something you don't like and something being
Yeah,
triggering.
but that's why I said a trigger warning isn't a trauma response.
Yes.
Again, you're basing it on the fact that because it might not be something that would trigger negatively for you, therefore it's not a trigger. But the fact of the matter is, like Yune has said, a cliffhanger, especially for me specifically, in a standalone story, is a negative. It's immediate points off, because for me, you've taken what could be an absolutely amazing story, and right at the end, you have completely ruined it. You've taken all your hard work and you've just... essentially, it works the same way for me as watching somebody paint the most beautiful landscape and then right at the end tip an entire bucket of paint over it.
No, that I apologize if this feels like I apologize if this invalidates your experience. I feel that's way too much of an overreaction for a cliffhanger. That to me is not something that would.
Which is why I said earlier that we, specifically Ari and me now, we can't see past that 1% that affected it negatively in this book. We can't focus on the 99% that was good. Because that 1% becomes the 99%
Yeah,
of the
100%.
book.
No, it becomes the what was the fucking point?
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah, and like while I enjoy what we have classified as cliffhangers in some extent, if it's unearned, in my eye, it becomes a what the fuck was the point, and that ruins the story and that ruins the experience. Like it colors the entire thing.
Yeah, because then looking back, all I'm going to think about is
It just
why.
made me
Just why.
feel like I wasted my time.
Yeah, 100%.
So why read it? Which is why I wouldn't recommend it. So it's better to not read it and read something that I will enjoy or more likely enjoy.
Absolutely.
Or if I actually feel like this really ticks so many of my boxes, but I know there's a cliffhanger at the end, I can go in knowing that I won't have all the
set your
answers or
expectations
much of
for
it.
it.
Yeah. And I might actually be able to focus on the other 99%, which I wouldn't have been able to do had I not known it's a cliffhanger.
Yeah, that's why I think
Does that make
warnings
sense?
at the beginning of a
Yeah.
book are so important, because it allows you choice. I would rather be told...
my issue is calling them trigger warnings.
No, your
Okay,
issue
no,
is the fact
wait,
that
no,
trigger
but I have a
warnings
question.
is being depicted in your head differently.
Okay, but okay, what would you call an experience that colors the entire preceding story negatively, other than a trigger warning? Because I don't know a better term.
Would it literally just not be? You see what I'm saying by? Would it not just be a? I think my issue is the word trigger, because to me, again, I look at trigger as something to do with trauma and not something to do with, like, this to me isn't a trauma. This is just something that is.
No, but again, I think you'll find that that is more because the use of the term trigger and trigger warning has become, in a societal context, very much out of sync with what the actual meaning is. And we see it all the time. A word or a phrase becomes popular and it becomes, for lack of a better term, bastardized and creates a new meaning, but that doesn't take away from the fact to trigger something is to set something off. So if it's a trigger warning, it is a warning that something will be triggered. And in that context, it is here is a list of things in this book that might trigger a negative emotion. That's all it means. It doesn't have to be, hey, there's going to be like really dark,
but this is where I
horrifying
struggle with
themes.
the idea of a cliffhanger being.
Yeah, but that's because that's purely you don't understand the fact that for you it isn't a negative. For me, having it as a warning gives me a choice. It allows me to go, am I in the mood to handle this right now? Is this going to thoroughly ruin the book for me, or am I able to set my expectations around the fact that there is going to be a cliffhanger at the end? Okay, I am cool. I'm going to read the book. I'm not okay. Not for me.
Okay, so is every book now going to come with an extensive list of absolutely everything that could be considered?
A lot of books do, especially under certain themes and certain genres. They do.
Especially romance.
Because again, the point of reading a book is to enjoy it. That's the whole point. An author is trying to make a book that you enjoy reading.
But this is why I don't understand such a strong reaction to a cliffhanger.
So this is an off-stream conversation.
Yeah, I think this is an autism empathy issue. Oh.
Well, I will say that we have actually overrun book club anyway.
Yeah.
So well done us. Next week we have Une is running a conversation on banned books, which we might have to rouse some Americans for, because they are definitely the kings and queens of the banned book.
Is 1984 banned in the US?
I know it was.
It was, and it might still be banned in some states.
Okay.
I think it is still banned in certain state schools. I don't know if it's banned from libraries as well. But yes, that will also likely be a really fun conversation.
I
Certainly
think
from
I
our point of view.
might take a trip to the library, because if I remember correctly, our local library has an entire wall
Called
with
banned books.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
I have a banned book I can read until next week, probably.
I think I have a tea towel somewhere that has a list of banned books through the years. I am going to say thank you to all of our viewers tonight. We've actually had a few of you around, so that's been really nice. We are on the path to affiliate, so keep those follows coming in. And as you'll notice on my about part of the channel, there is currently a fundraiser, because all of my streams in November are streaming for Mind, which is a mental health charity, which happens to be quite important to me, and should be important to you too. They do a lot of great work. So if you have any spare pennies and you want to donate, that would be well appreciated. And I guess we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, have a nice evening, guys.
And the transition, there we go.